Last year, I finished my first ever game dev project, Garbanzo Quest. It took me 3 years of solo full-time development to finish, and I learned a lot during that time. Since it was my first project, I didn't really have a strong sense for what was worth my time. I pretty much just added whatever sounded like fun. In this video, I will be going over all the things I added to Garbanzo Quest that a disciplined and knowledgeable person would probably urge me not to. I don't regret adding any of these things, I just think that they probably didn't push the needle when it comes to the game being financially successful. Before we start, I'd like to make a quick shout out to my patrons. More info on how to show your support at the end of the video. Let's begin with one of my favorite useless features. In Garbanzo Quest, when you start 2-player mode, you can actually both use the same keyboard. One of my goals for the game was for it to be as accessible as possible. This means adding difficulty options for those with less platformer experience and making sure everything is colorblind friendly by default. I also wanted the game to be financially accessible, so I thought making it so both players could share each side of the keyboard would be a good idea. This, however, doesn't work too great with keyboards with a low key rollover. Keyboards with a low key rollover don't do a very good job at detecting multiple inputs at once, which could cause actions to be dropped sometimes. Anyways, since you could share a keyboard, I thought it would be funny if you could both share one controller too. It's a little clumsy, but it's surprisingly effective. It turned out to be more complicated to implement this than I thought, and I haven't really heard of people taking advantage of it either. So that leads me to believe this was kind of a waste of time. This feature caused all kinds of problems at first too. Sometimes both players would select the same controller by accident and get confused. It took a few tries to get this right so people would stop doing it by accident. This, however, did make it easier for me to test 2-player co-op on my own. Speaking of 2-player co-op, I know that this feature isn't something we see a lot of nowadays, and I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm guessing there's probably just not enough money in it anymore. Still, I insisted on adding 2-player co-op mode to my game because I miss those days when you could play a game like this with your friend or loved one. I love the idea of my game helping others spend more time with their favorite people. Of all the feedback I've gotten about the game, it's my favorite when someone tells me that they played the game with their friend. That makes the game feel all the more special to me. Unfortunately, there's a lot of added complexity that comes with adding 2-player mode. There's lots of little challenges, like making sure enemies can target both players or designing a 2-player friendly user interface. But the greatest challenge of all was definitely the level design. There's certain level design ideas that are just simply off limits with 2 players. Things like falling platforms and extended hazardous sections without a place to stop really don't work. Also, before release, I had to find playtesters to test every single level in the game. And not just for 1-player mode, but for 2-player mode as well. So of course, this added a lot of work, but despite that, I'm adding 2-player co-op once again to my next game, Super Det. The pixel art platformer genre is a very saturated market, so I decided to go with the next worst thing this time instead and make a pixel art roguelike. Jokes aside, I think the game has a really interesting gimmick, where everything costs money. I really wanted to make a game with this core principle, and an action game where you fight through procedurally generated dungeons and start from the beginning every time was a really good fit. Anyways, back to Garbanzo Quest. I really wanted it to feel like you are part of a community. In the game, when you beat a level, you usually unlock a new friend. These friends can be found in the home base, and they'll walk around and say something stupid if you talk to them. When you talk to them, you might notice something. They each have their own talk sound effect. I probably spent less than a minute on a lot of these, but still, it adds up. Another costly idea was whenever you buy accessories from the accessory shop, your friends will sometimes be seen wearing them too. I added this to the game because I wanted it to feel like you weren't just getting new stuff just for you, but for the rest of your friends and community as well. I haven't really heard from any players noticing this. At best, I'll get a, "Huh, I don't remember this guy being blue," and quickly moving on. In addition to the accessories you can unlock in the game, I took things a step further and added the ability to draw on canvases that appear randomly throughout the game. I don't even remember why I wanted to add this in the first place. I probably just thought it would be fun. Something you might not have considered is that the player drawings are just stored as PNGs, so you can actually edit them outside of the game if you want. Needless to say, I don't think anyone would have noticed if I didn't add a drawing minigame to Garbanzo Quest. For Garbanzo Quest, I made my own engine and level editor. I have plenty of experience working with ready-made engines like Unity, Godot, and GameMaker, but I like learning new things, so that's why I decided on making my own. It's hard to say whether or not this was a terrible idea, as yes, it did take up extra time up front to implement, but making the actual game was faster since I had tools specifically made for the project. Since I made my own level editor, I thought it would be cool if players could use it to make their own levels as well. It's a lot of fun seeing the levels people make, but I did have to spend a lot of time answering questions and fixing issues with my janky level editor. I also spent a lot of time making sure Garbanzo Quest was mod friendly in other areas as well. All resources like sprites, dialogue, and music are stored in editable and human readable formats. I've seen a lot of interesting stuff done with this.
You think you're better than me?
Oh shit.
Something that's still on my to-do list is that I really want to add in-game level and mod sharing support. I thought about just using Steam Workshop, but I'm also selling my games on itch.io as well, and I don't want to leave those people out, so I've been looking into using mod.io instead. I've actually already implemented very crude level sharing. I'd say it's about 70% complete. However, I can't justify spending any more time on it at the moment because I am running out of money, so SuperDebt is my focus for now. I'm worried about problems with moderation as well. I'm just one guy, so I'm not sure how I would deal with that. Moving on, another thing I spent a lot of time on was tweaks. If you've ever played Celeste, you'll know that they have something called Assist Mode, where you can make the game easier in specific ways depending on your needs. For Garbanzo Quest, I did something similar, with the key difference being that you can also make the game harder. I thought people would want acknowledgements for playing the game at a harder difficulty, so I added tweak ranks. It came up with specific names for all the different configurations that are possible with tweaks. It was fun coming up with all the different names, but again, this is probably something less than 1% of players would enjoy. For a long time, I didn't see someone really capitalize on this until someone made this video where they beat every level in the game on the Perfecto Ultra Tough difficulty. Perfecto means you have 1 HP with no health pickups, Ultra means the game is at double speed, and Tough means that when you die, you start at the beginning of the level. This is a really impressive accomplishment, so congrats to Schmole for going through with it. This is the hardest difficulty in the game, aside from one extra tweak that deletes your save file if you die, which I added mostly just to be funny. I don't really expect anyone to use it. All the features mentioned may have technically been a waste of time, but if you ask me, that's kind of what time is for, to be wasted. Because what some call unproductivity, others call just living life. They may not have helped make my game more successful, but I think they helped Garbanzo Quest be the weird and quirky platformer that it always wanted to be. You know what's definitely not a waste of time? Thanking my patrons. If you'd like to play my next game SuperDebt early, or you just want to help show your support, please consider becoming a patron today. Oh, and there's a Discord too, if you want to stay up to date on SuperDebt's progress, or if you just want to chat about game development. Anyways, thank you to 8ACarr, John Paul Gardner, DoujinShinji, Paka, Reese, Quinton McCollum, Yosi C, Osto, Jake Horsley, Ryan Neese, Kurger, YoshyFoods, Zach, Nosa, Vanglant, Lucas Coelho, Schmole, Paulo Leitão, ACarr, Alex Howe, Rottady 01, and Sleepy Waifu. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.